Hey guys, thanks for the throw. We're here with Boris Kuiper, who's COO and CFO for Smoothstack, and they do a lot of work in training. And we're talking about whether IT folks are ready to become AI managers. Boris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Michael. Happy to be here.
What do we mean by that? Because a lot of IT folks would say, well, what do you mean I got to think about becoming an AI manager? I am as prepared as anybody else, and maybe more so, they would, at least some might argue. What's your sense of what's going on here? What is different about AI as a new emerging technology that IT people need to maybe rethink some of their assumptions?
Yeah, so the landscape of software development has changed drastically over the last year, I would say. And I would say the biggest difference is that software developers now are really generating about the last 20% of code, right? The first 80% is created quickly by AI for developers that are adopting AI. And it's that last 20% where the architectural thinking and the real engineering happens. And so there's a big reliance on AI to generate code quicker, faster, and jumpstart velocity.
It's not hard to imagine, especially in the land of software development, how the future might be a bunch of AI agents that IT people are now managing to accomplish a task, and many of those tasks they would previously have done manually. What is it about managing and orchestrating AI agents that's different from the way IT normally does their job or the tasks they perform?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. There are a lot of differences between an AI agent and a human, right? AI agents don't get sick, they don't need to sleep, they can work round the clock. But what they're missing is that business context and overall kind of context of what needs to happen within a project. And so at the end of the day, you can't hold an AI accountable for bad code. You can only hold humans accountable for bad code. And so, who's overseeing what the AI is doing? Who's prompting the AI to do what it needs to do? And at the end of the day, making sure that what you end up with from a product perspective meets the requirements of the business and the stakeholders involved.
Hmm. We tend to think of software developers as a type of knowledge worker, but are we all evolving into something that's not just, say, a knowledge worker as much as maybe we're knowledge managers, and that requires a slightly different mindset?
Somewhat. I think you have to have inherent, you can't just folks are calling it vibe coding these days, and I think that means different things to different people, but you can't just become a vibe coder where you don't understand the context of what the code is actually doing or how it's written and rely 100% on AI to generate that code. Um, AI isn't writing perfect code, it's writing plausible code. And plausible code can be very dangerous if it's not reviewed. And so it's really incumbent upon individuals, humans, to understand what that context is and actually make sure that the code is not just plausible, it's secure. We're not blindly trusting the AI. We're validating the AI generated code before it merges into production, et cetera.
Mhm,
So I would argue that the knowledge work is still required and heavily dependent on humans.
mhm. One of the things you will hear from software developers working with these tools is that they find that they are reading and reviewing more code than they're actually writing. And is that the way this job is going to evolve?
Potentially, right? So really the idea is, and we can equate this to folks that have used ChatGPT to write an email, or any other kind of thing that they use it to prompt um, some sort of verbal communication with. you can prompt the AI, but the AI is not going to give you a perfect result, right? You still have to review what the AI spits out, and you have to alter it to fit your specific needs. And that change in what the actual end product is could be dependent on how well you're prompting the AI. Even if you prompt it perfectly, uh, you're still probably going to want to review it and edit it to make sure that it meets your needs. I think coding, you can draw a big comparison to that from the coding perspective, in that you can eliminate a lot of the menial kind of upfront coding structure and tasks that are required, and really add the finishing touches that require the most amount of brain power from the individual. So I would say that yes, in some sense that is true, but you're essentially what you're able to do by utilizing AI is do a lot more, because you can eliminate some of those upfront tedious kind of tasks and really focus on the meat and potatoes of the problem.
What do we need to do in terms of training for folks? Because a lot of times when I talk to people, the general expectation is that somehow or other they will magically go on their own and learn how to use these tools and figure it out for themselves. And and then the boss gets a little annoyed when he finds out that that's not happening. So, is there some smarter way to go about kind of exposing people to these technologies and training them?
Absolutely. If you don't have a rigid training process and a change management process, then folks will just adopt and use AI at different levels, and they'll do it based on their own judgment, or they won't adopt at all. So I think, as leaders kind of think about this problem, there's two things that they should do right away. Uh, the first thing that they should do is set up an AI usage policy immediately, right? So things like establishing guidelines for prompt design, tool access, data sharing, educate developers not to blindly trust AI. That's a big rabbit hole that folks can go down. Monitor AI tool usage and track adoption. Uh, Validate AI generated code. The second thing that leaders need to do is proactively incentivize adoption of AI, because your more senior developers are not incentivized to adopt AI. And the reason why is because their productivity actually declines initially, because they're really good developers. They've been doing this for many years. Now they're introducing a new tool, and they're having to learn that tool. And as a result, productivity goes down, which is not typically desired in a senior developer. So I think the change management component is very significant when thinking about what leaders actually need to proactively do in terms of training and ultimately getting adoption, because leaders are looking to AI for increased productivity.
Who should be in charge of AI? Because I think there's an assumption in a lot of organizations that this will just get managed by the CIO and the rest of the IT team. But I also see organizations where there is now a chief AI officer, or sometimes it's the data officer that's assumed those responsibilities. Is there a right answer here?
I don't think there's a right answer, and I think the answer can change depending on the size of the organization. Some companies can afford to hire a chief AI officer, and have a specific role carved out, and some companies, quite frankly, cannot. Right, and I don't think that AI should be just geared towards larger companies. I think that there's a place for AI in small and medium sized companies as well. I think it really depends. But I think the most important thing is to have somebody that is charged with determining how to utilize AI, what are the use cases within each organization, how to effectively adopt it without introducing security risk and all of that other stuff, and ultimately how to increase production to give your company an edge. So I don't think that there's a specific role, but I think that somebody at the company, leadership needs to give that lantern to somebody, and it should be somebody's, at least a portion of their time spent on determining these things and really setting up this process. And again, a part of it is the change management. In our case, within our company, I'm involved from an operations perspective, but I partner very closely with our CTO, with our internal training program, as an example, to produce AI native developers.
Hmm. Um, how much of this going forward do you think is a technical challenge versus really what amounts to being a cultural challenge inside organizations, and it's an exercise in business process reengineering?
I think it's really both. I think that's a really good question, and something for leaders to think about. Um, you cannot, without considering both of these things, you cannot successfully adopt AI within your organization. Um, some of it is as simple as, companies are not utilizing AI because they don't have a use case for AI, or they're not aware of what the use cases are for AI. Um, and so they're slow adopters, or late adopters. Some companies really want to utilize AI, and they understand the value. They have clear outlined use cases, but they can't get the adoption because they haven't laid down the framework for their employees to easily adopt.
Mhm. So, among the companies that you have seen making this transition well, what are they doing that others are not?
They're putting a specific focus. Yeah, I read an article over the weekend about Intuit and some other companies that are actually in their job postings, posting, looking for folks that have adopted AI within their coding practice. Um, you know, Sometimes companies will look at AI negatively. Oh, you're cheating, or you're just using AI to generate the code. Um, and some companies find real value in folks that are what we call native AI developers, meaning you know how to develop on your own without the use of AI, and you're able to adopt AI and use it in such a way where you're able to essentially pour lighter fluid on your work and make it burn a lot quicker, right, and hotter. You're able to do a lot more with limited resources. So um, I would say that um, it's really, really important to focus on that.
All right. Well, folks, you heard it here. The thing about AI is it changes the way that we interact with machines, but it maybe, just maybe, it will also change the way we need to think. Hey, Boris, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Mike.
All right. And back to you guys in the studio.